Greetings. This is Bradford Donald Keller Townsend, and this is a forward research report. Google AdSense, the Google AdSense online terms of service. Here we are on the status and features screen. I went to my YouTube channel, then I went to Creator Studio, and then I'm going to click here on monetization. Click on monetization. Okay. And then it says monetization, apply for monetization, your YouTube partner, terms accepted. I've had a channel for 3 years. Which is not monetized, and then it says sign up for AdSense. So I'm going to go over here and hit start, and then I'm going to go down here and hit next, and then that's me, and that's my email if anyone would like to email me. I'm real bad about reading emails. I'm clicking yes. I want to click my country, the United States of America. Takes a moment to get to there. Okay, and then here's the agreement. I would like to give a disclosure. My name is Bradford Donald Keller Townsend. I am the stepson of John Frederick Townsend Jr., a graduate of the University of Michigan with a degree in philosophy, a law degree from Harvard University in Boston, Massachusetts, and for over a decade was president of the American Trial Lawyers Association. Only a tiny percentage of lawyers actually try cases like you see in television and film. And he was the youngest lawyer in U.S. history to win a case in front of the United States Supreme Court at the time that he did it. My brother-in-law, Joshua Coker, is the prosecutor for Hamilton County in Indiana, and my cousin John Springer is also an elected prosecutor in western Indiana, where Sullivan, Indiana is. So I have more. My brother John Frederick Townsend III is an Order of the Coif and a prominent lawyer here in Indianapolis and Indiana. And my cousin Earl Townsend III is his partner and best friend, and they practice together and have one of the most prosperous law firms here in Indianapolis. So I come, and my grandfather, and had great grandfathers that were lawyers, and the first Attorney General was Pennsylvania was a Bradford, and the first head of national intelligence was also a Bradford in my family line. So my family started education in the United States with Harvard University and the public school systems. We started the intelligence services, or the spy services. We started the U.S. military as William Bradford embedded himself with Native American tribes as allies and fought alongside the Native Americans against those tribes aggressing and trying to steal their land, and that's why they were allowed to stay where they were and not get driven out by the Native Americans as they allied with them, with some of the tribes. So if you look at the big institutions like banking, my family helped start the Federal Reserve Bank and have had banks, been in the banking industry for centuries. So without further ado, I will give legal advice in this video and my opinions, as I do not fear the law. But they may strike the video down and remove it completely. It may slip in under the radar, but I'm going to go ahead and read to you the AdSense agreement with those disclosures. Google AdSense Online Terms of Service. Welcome to AdSense. Thank you for your interest in our search and advertising services. Parentheses, the services. By using our services, you agree to 1. These terms of service. 2. The AdSense program with a link. I will not go into all these links, which include but are not limited to the current policies, the Webmaster Quality Guidelines, the ad implementation policies, and the EU user consent policy, collectively the AdSense policies, quote. And 3, the Google branding guidelines, parentheses, collectively the AdSense terms, close parentheses. If ever in conflict, these terms of service will take precedence over any other terms in the policies and guidelines and enumerated in number 2 and 3 above. Please read these terms and service and the rest of the AdSense terms carefully. I know it's hard and you may not have the training. If you sign a lease for an apartment or to purchase a car, it really is the right thing to do. And I'm not being a hypocrite here, or I am being a hypocrite in a way, to read the contracts that you sign. And I'm trying to do that for you and help you a little. As used in these terms of service, you or publisher means the individual or entity using the services and or individual agent, employee, representative, network, parent, subsidiary, affiliate, successor, related entities, and assigns, or all other individuals or entities according on your behalf, at your direction, under your control, under the direction or control of the same individual or entity who controls you. Ooh, they control you? We, us, or Google. So what they're saying is we can substitute we or us, and when they're using we or us, they're meaning the large corporation, Google Limited Liability Corporation. That's what LLC. I've owned many businesses and owned shares in thousands of businesses. And that's what it means. And what that means is that basically they're above the law. They can commit murder, dump tons, 1 million tons of pollutants into the river or whatever, and all they have to do is pay a fine. Wells Fargo, for example, had to pay $1 billion fine for stealing from their customers. And I worked for Prudential when they were stealing from their customers. They just would rip money out of my customers' accounts and infuriate them, and they'd call up screaming at me. And the party means you and Google. And Google, I think most people are familiar with Google and their business behavior. I won't comment on that now. 2, access to the services AdSense accounts. Your use of the services is subject to your creation and our approval of an AdSense account. Parenthesis, open parenthesis, an account, close parenthesis, period. We have the right to reuse or limit your access to the services. In order to verify your account from time to time, we may ask for additional information from you, including but not limited to verification of your name, address, and other identifying information. By submitting an application to use services, if you are an individual, you present that you are at least 18 years of age. You may only have one account. If including those under your direction or control create multiple accounts, you will be entitled to further payment from Google, and your accounts will be subject to termination pursuant to provisions below. I created a bank called the National Bank of Indianapolis, was a director of the insurance company of Detroit, and a vice president and spokesperson for Prudential Investments and Insurance. And what I can tell you as an insider is that they have extensive detective background capabilities. And they can use what's called big data, which is everything that you do digitally, talking on your phone. They can listen to you, every email you've sent, everything you've purchased, nudie pictures with your significant partner, all that they have, and they scan. And from all that information, reading your high school transcript with a computer real quick and all that, your college, any college you've had, any legal actions have been, all that is collated into a dossier on you. So, and a lot of this is done by computer programs, not by human labor, but they check you out, and that's what's really happening and what you're consenting to there. By enrolling in AdSense, you permit Google to serve as applicable, comma, in parentheses, the small letter I, advertisements and other content. In logic and in advanced mathematics, small i's and like I ellipsis, which means dot, 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 means that you're going to have a sequence or a pattern that's going to repeat, or a summation where you have lots of numbers that you're going to add or multiply or do some kind of operation on. And then there's dot, dot, Google search boxes, small case I, in parentheses, Google search boxes and search results, and in parentheses, small case I, related search queries and other links to your websites, mobile applications, media players, mobile content, and other properties approved by Google, each individually a property in quotations. And that is a legal term. It's a property. It may not be physical, like owning land property, like I own lots of real estate in trust funds, or the trust funds own them, but they own that property. There's also property, could be a book, a painting, it could be a brand. Let's say I created a brand, Delicious Chips, and copyrighted it. That would be a property. It can be an abstract idea or a song. My uncle wrote a hit song that sold over 1 million copies of sheet music and was a huge smash success, and he was friends with another famous man named Cole Porter, who at the time, at the end of his career, was by far the most selling artist of sheet music, which was property. The songs are property, so you can't just play them on the radio, sing them on the radio or whatever. You have to pay Cole Porter for producing that music. In addition, you grant Google the right to access, index, and I'm going to say it in French, not sure how to say it in English, cache the properties or any portion thereof, including by automated means. And means here doesn't mean average, it means by way of or as a conveyance. There's probably over 20 definitions of the word means, and that's what they're intending here. Google may refuse to provide the services to any property. This I'm going to highlight if I can. I like green because it's growing things and chlorophyll. That's why I chose that kind for my highlighting. This is more of an aqua olive green. Google may refuse to provide the services to any property. So you own property. When you create content, you are creating property. Just like when my uncle wrote a song that was a smash hit in the 1940s, you that's property that my Uncle Earl created. Now, if you create a smash hit video documentary, that would be property. And they're saying Google may refuse to provide services to any property. For basically, they do not have to give you a reason. At any time, they can just cancel you and block you from YouTube. You need to know that before you invest your time in YouTube. Any property that is a software application and accesses our services, A in parentheses, may require pre-approval by Google in writing. I'll say again, any property that is a software application, that's a computer program or a chunk of code, probably pretty vague, an access term, and access our services may require pre-approval by Google in writing and must comply with Google's software principles. And there's a link that goes into more detail there. 3. Using our services. You may use our services, which R is Google, as permitted by the AdSense terms and any applicable laws. You may use our services only as permitted by AdSense terms, which is basically they can do whatever they want, and any applicate, which is what they said previously, any application of laws. And they're so ambiguous. And in the real world, coming from a family of super attorneys, I would say, a lot of, when it comes to law, has nothing to do with what the law says. It's might makes right. It's who gives the most political contributions to the judges and to the political parties, and who has the most lawyers and can create the most legal documents and flood the offices of the judges and the clerk's office, with papers that have to be processed. And because they have whole floors of lawyers and paralegals, maybe 3 paralegals per lawyer, they can literally send a semi-tractor trailer truck with larger than meter cubes full of properly filled out legal documents from paralegals using automated computer programs, filling in the blank. They just fill in fields, and then it populates documents, and they have large printers, and then they print them out, and then have people that aren't even paralegals that they just call secretaries, and then they do the manual labor of binding them up and making them look nice. My family have to have storage units just to keep all, and they have to keep the documents for years. They have large storage units, warehouses full of papers and documents that from their lawsuits. I've been in there when years ago and helped them shift around, even with forklifts, all the paperwork of the law firm. You may use and a regular person can't do that. So it's not, who's right or wrong. A lot of it is just who can, file more paperwork than the other person. And then it causes the system to process all that paperwork because it's technically correct. And then they do what's called settling a case, where usually you get less than what you should get. But you can't battle them by you creating tons, literally, I'm not exaggerating, tons of forms and documents that costs money, of course. Paper and ink, and especially ink, costs quite a bit of money, and shipping it, things that big and bulky, cost quite a bit of money. So they just overwhelm you with, cubes like you see getting moved around by forklifts and warehouses. Using our services. You may use our services only as permitted by the AdSense terms and any applicable laws. Don't misuse our services. Well, what does that mean? That means nothing, pretty much. It's just whatever they think is misuse. For example, por ejemplo, in Espanol, don't interfere with our services or try to access them using a method other than interface and instructions that we provide. You may discontinue your services at any time, removing the relevant code from your properties. 4. Changes to our services to AdSense terms. We are constantly changing the terms of this agreement, is what they're saying, and improving for their improvement, not for you, but for them. We may add or remove functionalities or features of the service at any time. We may suspend or stop a service altogether. I think for mine, when people query on topics like, let's say, dyslexia, where I think I have excellent videos on, I don't get views because when people search for those topics, they don't have me on the list in the stack of the computer program, or the data structure doesn't have me in it, so I don't pop up when people want to learn how to overcome their dyslexia. So because they don't like my content per se, my stuff doesn't pop up, but they don't block me because I'm not monetized, or there's some of the stuff they do like, or I'm just too small and they don't bother. And I don't know which of those or all of the above it could be. We may modify the AdSense terms at any time. We'll post any modifications to the terms of service on this page, and any modifications to the AdSense policies or the Google branding guidelines on their respective pages. Changes will generally become effective 14 days after they are posted. However, changes addressing new functions for a service, and that's capitalized, and that makes, in legal terms, that is significant, or changes made for legal reasons, will be effective immediately. If you don't agree to any modified terms in this, again capitalized, AdSense terms, you'll have to stop using the affected services. So I was just thinking about the word affected. There's affected and effected, and the dictionary does not clearly says that people have used that word. They use it as a noun, a verb, an adverb, an adjective, both effected and adfected. So the words pretty much are just the way people use them in that context. So you got to kind of fill it in what affected means, because the word is not well defined in the, it's ambiguously defined in the dictionary, because it's used the same by consistently by authors. Payment. Subject to this section and section 6 of these terms of service, you will receive a payment related to the number of valid clicks on ads displayed on your properties, capitalized. The number of valid impressions of ads, capitalized, displayed at your properties, capitalized, or other valid events performed in connection with the display of ads, capitalized, on your properties, only if, when Google, capitalized, determines that your properties, capitalized, have remained in compliance with AdSense, capitalized, terms, capitalized, including AdSense policies, capitalized, as identified in section 1, capitalized, above, in parentheses, closed, for the entirety of the period for which the payment is made, and through to the date that the payment is issued. So they basically can pay you or not pay you at their discretion. They're not giving any formulating table of what they pay you for your content. I've seen screenshots where people, let's say, had 30,000 views and then it drops down to 5,000 views. What they pay you per view, how many views they count, everything is up to them. They can just pay you whatever they feel like. If they want to make more profits for the month, they can just reduce your views or change the formula on how they pay you. If your account is in good standing through to the time when Google issues you a payment, we will pay you by the end of the calendar month following any calendar month. That means you don't get paid. Let's say at the beginning of June, you post a video and it gets 1.5 million views that month. Then you'll get paid at the end of the following month. So you might have to wait 6-7 weeks or longer to get paid, and most of the time, you'll average over 5 weeks to get paid, which is good in the business world. It's customary in big business, because I've been in big business, to pay in 60 to 90 days. So them paying you in only maybe 45 days is pretty good. They pay pretty quickly. If you're used to working somewhere where they pay you every week or 2 weeks, that seems like a long time. But in the business world, that's a pretty quick payment. Let's see. I'll start there. In your account equals or exceeds the applicable payment threshold. So let's say you need to make $2 before they pay you, or 10 or 100, whatever and they can set that amount at whatever they want and change it whenever they want. If Google is investigating your compliance with AdSense terms, you have been suspended or terminated, your payment will be delayed or withheld. Well, they have vague terms or very broad terms that basically allows them to do what they want. They're basically, we can do whatever we want and pay you or not pay you or cancel you and your videos and your views at any time. If for any reason we feel like or reason for, and they have all the incentives to skim money off of you by finding some kind of some manager at mid-level, like where I've been as a vice president, needs certain numbers to be hit. Le chiffre, data, then they can figure out some kind of an excuse to reduce what they pay you and keep in Google's treasure chest. If you implement search services or payments may be offset by any applicable fees for such services. In addition, Google may withhold and offset any payments owed to you under AdSense terms against any fees you owe us under AdSense terms or any other agreement, comma, or B, in parentheses, require you to refund us within 30 days any invoice, any amounts we may have overpaid you in prior periods. You are responsible for any charges for any assessed by your bank or payment. So if they turn around and change, for any reason, they can just turn around and make you pay them back any money that they've paid you. And in some ways, they may even ask for more than they've paid you. Unless expressly authorized in writing by Google, you may not enter into any type of agreement with a third party where that third party receives payments made to you under AdSense terms or other benefit in relation to the services. Now that is they're not going to honor your agreements. Like if you have an agreement with someone, let's say, that does your editing, and you're the front person and star of the show, so to speak, and you hire people and say you're going to each get 10% of what we get, they will not honor those agreements. That's just a simple example, and there's many other potential arrangements. Payments will be calculated solely based on Google's accounting, which is subject to change, in their benefit at any time. You acknowledge and agree that you are only entitled to payment for your use of services for which Google has been paid. If for any reason Google does not receive payment from an advertiser or credits such payment back to an advertiser, you are not entitled to be paid for any associated use of the services, capitalized, which means they're legal personages. They have superhuman rights. That's what it means if you have a capitalized service. They have more rights than a human being, American citizen, or citizen of the Netherlands would have. Additionally, if an advertiser whose ads, capitalized, again, a legal person, are displayed on any property, a legal person, capitalized, defaults on a payment to Google, a supercorporation above the law, we may withhold payments or charge back your account, which is a legal personages. Google has the right to withhold or adjust payments to you to exclude any amounts Google determines arise from invalid activity. Invalid activities include, but not limited to. So here they're at least going to tell you what some of their reasons for not paying you are. Small case I, remember that means you're going to iterate or do something in a pattern, or spam, invalid clicks, whatever that means. Invalid impressions, very vague. Invalid queries, very vague. Invalid conversions or other invalid events on ads, capitalized as illegal personages, generated by any person. A bot, I don't know, that probably has, I'm sure there's been litigation, so there's some kind of definition for bot, which is a computer program, automated program or similar device, including through any clicks. A click is a computer program, actually, quite big one if you had to look at the code in detail. Impressions, queries, conversions, and other events originating from your IP addresses or computers under your control. Semicolon, two I's in parentheses. Clicks, impressions, queries, conversions, or other events solicited or generated by the payment of money, false representation, or request for end users to click on ads or take other actions. Semicolon. That means a complete thought is ended and they're starting a new one. I in quotations, small case, ads as a person, served to end users whose browsers have JavaScript, that's software, internet software used to provide the interface and graphics and sound and video, displayed or who are otherwise tampering with small case ad serving or measurement. IV, small case, that's the number Roman numeral 4. Any click, impression, query, conversion, or other event occurring on a property that does not comply with the capital AdSense policies. Small v, which is number 5 in Roman. Any click, impression, query, conversion, or other event occurring on impressions, queries, conversions, or other events in any account with significant amounts of invalid activity as described in, this is Roman numerals 1 through 5 above, or with types of invalid activity before or after issuing a payment for that activity. Google reserves the right to debit your account. That means they can take money back out of your account. So your account, they make you have an account that they can withdraw from and adjust future payments accordingly for all invalid clicks, which they do not define. Maybe we should go check that out later. Maybe I'll make a video on invalid clicks. Impressions, queries, conversions, or other events, including for all clicks, impressions, queries, conversations, or other events on properties that do not comply with AdSense policies. Additionally, Google may refund or credit advertisers for some or all of the advertiser payments associated with a publisher's account. You acknowledge and agree that whenever Google issues such funds or credits, you will not be entitled to receive any payment for any associated use of services. Termination, suspension, and entitlement of further payment. Google may, at any time without providing a warning or prior notice, temporarily suspend further payments on your account, suspend or terminate the participation of any property in the service, or suspend or terminate your account because of, among other reasons, invalid activity of your failure to otherwise fully comply with AdSense policies. Google can terminate your participation in the services and close your account if your account remains inactive for a period of more than 6 consecutive months. If Google closes your account due to inactivity, the balance reflected in your account equals or exceeds the applicable threshold, we will pay you that balance subject to your payment provisions in Section 5. If Google closes your account due to inactivity, you will not be prevented from submitting a new application of services. Oops. Find my spot again here. If Google terminates your account due to your breach of AdSense terms, including but not limited to your causing or failing to prevent invalid activity on any property, or your failure to otherwise fully comply with AdSense policies, you will not be entitled to any further payment from Google for any prior use of these services. If the breach of AdSense terms of Google or suspends or terminates your account, you, small case I, are prohibited from creating a new account, and small case II, may not be permitted to monetize content on other Google products. If you dispute any payment made or withheld relating to the use of your services of Google, terminates your account, and you dispute your termination, you must notify Google within 30 business days of any payment, non-payment, or termination by submitting an appeal. If you do not, any claim related to disputed payment or termination is waived. You may terminate your use of services at any time by completing the account cancellation process. Your AdSense account will be considered terminated within 10 business days on the receipt of your notice. If you terminate your account at the balance reflected in your account equals or exceeds the threshold, we will pay you that balance, subject to the payment provisions in Section 5 within approximately 90 days of service. May balance reflected to your account below the threshold will remain. So if you do have an account that's making money, after 10 days you should close out that account so that before they can suck the money back out, is what they're saying. Do not leave the account open with the money sitting in there. They can suck it out for basically any reason they can make up. 7. Taxes. As between you and Google, Google is responsible for all taxes, if any, associated with transaction between Google and advertisements in connection with ads displayed on the properties. You are responsible for all taxes, if any, associated with the services, other than taxes based on Google's net income. All payments to you from Google in relation to the services will be treated as inclusive of tax, if applicable, and will not be adjusted. As someone who's owned businesses and been self-employed, that means you pay both sides of Social Security tax and other taxes. It could be the alternative minimum tax. So if you are not well versed in accounting for small businesses, you definitely should get someone who you know well and trust that has your best interests at mind and in heart to help you, because being self-employed, you pay much higher taxes than someone who is employed as an employee. And you're not considered a child. If you are an entrepreneur, as I have been, you are considered a full adult, and you're supposed to learn the laws and regulations necessary for the operation of your enterprise. So you can't plead ignorance in court. 8. Testing. You authorize Google to periodically conduct tests that may affect your use of the services, capitalized, to ensure the timeliness and validity of test results. You authorize Google to conduct such tests without notice. Intellectual property brand features. Other than as set out expressly in the agreement, neither party will acquire any right, title, or interest in any intellectual property rights belonging to the other party or other parties' licensors. If Google provides you with software in connection with the services, we grant you a non-exclusive, non-sub-licensable license for such software. This license is for the sole purpose of enabling you to use and enjoy the benefit of services as provided by Google in the manner permitted by the agreement, other than distributing content via the AdMob SDK. AdMob, wow, that says a lot right there. Who knows what SDK acronym is? You may not copy, modify, distribute, sell, or lease any part of our services or included software, or reverse engineer or attempt to extract the source code of that software, unless laws prohibit those restrictions or have our written permission. You will not remove, obscure, or alter Google's copyright notice, brand features, or other property rights notices affixed to or contained within any Google services, software, or documentation. Mob in French is le fou, which is close to fool. So mobs, psychological analysis have been done on mobs for centuries now that we've had the discipline of psychology, and they are very bad at making decisions. They are worse than individuals would make, and are erratic and inconsistent. So I'm thinking of it more that way than of a gangster mob. It's just more being irrational and topsy-turvy. We grant you a non-exclusive, non-sub-licensable license to use Google's trade names, trademarks, service marks, logos, domain names, and other distinctive brand features solely in connection with your use of the services and in accordance with the AdSense terms. We may revoke this license at any time. Any goodwill arising from your use of Google brand features will belong to Google. Goodwill is things like a good reputation, a good reputation that leads to repeat customers and business, and your ability to do business. So it's a very broad and opaque term that gives them an excuse to sue you for about anything. We may include your name and brand features in our presentations, marketing materials, customer lists, and financial reports. So it's a one-way street in their favor. They can use your, quote, property, end quote, but you cannot use theirs. Privacy. Our privacy policy explains how we treat your personal data and protect your privacy when you use our services, capitalized. By using our services, you agree that Google can use such data in accordance with our privacy policy. You and Google also agree to Google Ads controller data protection terms. You will ensure that all that all times you use the services, the properties have a clearly labeled and easily accessible privacy policy that provides end users with a clear and comprehensive information about cookies, device-specific information, location information, and other information stored on, accessed on, or collected from end users. Devices in connection with the services, including as applicable information about end users' options for cookie management. You will use commercially reasonable efforts to ensure that an end user gives consent to the storing and assessing of cookies, devices, location information, or other information to end user devices. Such consent is required by law. Now, what they're saying is people who have YouTube channels and they may have a sponsor, let's say a makeup sponsor, and they could put in a program that pops up and goes onto people's computers. It could to do all kinds to track them, to do a visual effect, to see what their makeup purchases are, and that type of thing. And they're saying you're not supposed to do that without giving them a warning. And most people will just click on it and don't know what they're clicking on, and they're adding a software program to their computer to track them or to present things to them. 11. Confidentiality. You agree not to disclose Google confidential information without our prior written consent. So that with written, when something is written, that means they can use it in court much easier if they have your voice recorded or something in writing, and they can get the judge to take it as evidence. Google, which they can probably because they give massive contributions to the political party of the judge, and that makes them biased in their favor. Google confidential information includes A, all Google software, technology, and documentation relating to the services. B, click-through rates or other statistics required to property performance as pertaining to the services. C, the existence of information about or terms of any non-public beta or experimental features in a service. D, any other information made available by Google that is marked confidential or would normally be considered confidential under the circumstances in which it is presented. Google confidential information does not include information that is yours, that was independently developed by you, or that was lawfully given to you by the third party. Notwithstanding the Section 11 Elf mit Deutsch, you may accurately disclose the amount of Google's gross payments resulting from your use of the services. I'm taking a break. This is the end of part 1 of AdSense.